So one limitation of the working memory model. There's quite a few different things that you could say. I'm going to go through two with you because they were the main ones that people said. So this is kind of the information that was in the booklet. So I'm just going to use this to kind of form the basis of an answer. And this will give you an idea as well of how you can use what's in the booklet to create a point rather than just regurgitating what's in the booklet. So one limitation of the working memory model, tip for you, recycle the question, is that one limitation of the working memory model is that central executive is that I'm going to put evidence suggests that the central executive is not a single store. For example, Eslinger and Damasio studied a patient after the removal of a brain tumour who could still perform well on tasks requiring reasoning, but not on tasks requiring decision making. I'll put that example in as well. So would spend hours deciding where to eat. Now we need to kind of explain what the impact of that is. So let me read it out in full. So one limitation of the working memory model is that evidence suggests that the central executive is not a single store. For example, Eslinger and Damasio studied a patient after the removal of a brain tumour who could still perform well on tasks requiring reasoning, but not. This working memory model is a limited explanation of memory, as this participant to perform equally on those tasks if component that's not very explicit. This suggests the working memory model is a limited explanation of memory, as this participant will be able to perform equally well on those tasks if essentially was a component, and therefore it must be more complex and have more components. Let's just see what this sounds like. Right, yeah, that looks good. So that could be one limitation of the working memory model. The other one is this one here about how you've got some slave systems for like visual information and for sound information, but it doesn't really account for like other things that you would remember, like smell or touch or whatever, which the multi-store model does kind of account for if you're comparing it against that as a model of memory. So you could make that point as well. So we can put I'm only going to put, because it's one limitation, I'm just going to start it off the same. Obviously, you'll need one of them, but just to show you how you could do the other point as well, because a few people did do it. So one limitation of the working memory model is that it's only for information such as visual and only accounts for processing information such as visual and acoustic via the visuospatial sketch and phonological loop slave systems. Therefore, does not account for touch or smell. Therefore, this model is incomplete, valid. Just see what I've got on here. This is actually another point here about how it kind of moves around the different stores, which is completely different to this point. So I wouldn't add it on in terms of the transference. That's kind of another point, and it's a very weak point as well, which is why it's been kind of added to this one, which is also quite weak, which is probably why in the booklet it's done that. As you can see, this one here, so I've got one limitation of the working memory model is that it only accounts for processing information such as visual and acoustic via the visuospatial sketchpad and the phonological loop slave systems. In fact, I'll just bracket that. Therefore does not account for other memories such as touch or smell. Therefore this model is incomplete and invalid at explaining how all memories are formed. So why am I talking? I was thinking then, why am I talking about memory? But because this is the memory topic. When people answered this question, what with this answer, what you did was you said a limitation of the working memory model is that it only accounts for processing. You said it doesn't account for memories like touch and smell, but you didn't really say why. You didn't really make reference to the model. So you've got to mention that in the working memory model, it does say how visual and acoustic information is processed by the visuospatial sketchpad and the phonological loop slave systems. There's got to be some reference to the actual model itself, as there was in this one about how the central executive is for reasoning and decision making. So you've got to kind of reference the model. That's like your evidence in your like P point, and then you explain what the impact of that is. So the fact that there's only visual and acoustic, but there's no smell or touch or anything like that, which actually are called different things. If you think about the multi-store model, I was just thinking of the gastronomy one, the taste one, so you could have mentioned that one as well. Olfactory is smell, touch is haptic, so you can use the actual proper terms as well if you want, make it a bit more fancy, but you've got to explain what that means. That means that the model can't be valid. It's an incomplete model because it's not accounting for where all this other information is going. If it's not going to the slave systems of the visuospatial sketchpad and the phonological loop, then where is it being processed? It must be being processed somewhere else, which the model doesn't account for. So again, you could probably put that in there, actually, explaining how all, I'll put information and memories are formed. There we go, that's better. So there you go, you could have had either of those. As you can see, this one's a little bit more detailed. It's actually got a proper study in it as well, so it's a bit better. You probably want to aim for that, really. But this is all right. You can still get the marks for this, as long as you explain it fully and make reference to the model.